Hello, my name is Linda, also known as Tortajala around the internet, and I love creative journaling and all things stationery. Today, I wanted to show you a detailed look at my Hobonichi weeks for 2025 and also a few of the details of how I'm setting it up for the new year. If you want to journal along while you have me playing in the background, I think that would be lovely. My thought is to actually spend a little more time just diving into my new Hobonichi weeks. Even though I have used this for a couple of years now, I feel like when you have a pristine, like new copy, a new planner, there's a lot to enjoy in just flipping through it, taking notice of the details again. And in this case, the cover is, of course, unique for the year. Through the Purple Night, that's the title of the artwork featured on this cover. The artwork is by an artist named Junaida, and it was inspired by a song written by the musician Masamune Kusano. So that's why it's considered a collaboration. You can see on the cover on the back here, it has their names on the back. And I think it's interesting that the Hobonichi logo is embossed here, but it's like less evident. It's like white on white. So maybe they purposefully, of course, wanted to feature the artist and musician names, which is silver embossed. And this beautiful cover artwork, it's really what caught my eye to begin with and why I got the Hobonichi Weeks in the first place. Actually, I guess I would have gotten one anyways, but usually I would go for just a plain cover because my thought is that I could add stickers or something to a plain color and sort of make it my own, right? But in this case, I just fell in love with this artwork, so I decided to use it for 2025. It shows like a purple forest scene with all these like flora and fauna, trees, flowers, and of course lots of animals, the horse, deer, cat, like whimsical elements as well, like this planet and stars. So it's really like definitely like fantasy sort of whimsical. Gives me that vibe, and it's not like too cutesy given like the elements and the color palette, but it's still, you could still consider it cute as well. And personally, I feel like it's sort of a good representation of like fantasy for adults in a sense. Like it's colored differently and the mood and feeling is whimsical, but it's not like childish cartoony like kawaii kind of thing. So that's my like the feeling that I get. By the way, on the cover, it's sort of like this textured, canvasy kind of material, and the golden sort of moon here with the three star shapes punched out. That's actually something I added myself. I always do add something to like my covers to make it my own. Um, I like the personalization and just like, the little embellishments here and there. And I thought that it really fit like this whole illustration to add like this golden moon. Obviously, I like gold, I like the shimmer, but the three stars punched out represent like my three kids. And yeah, it matches, the year gold embossing. And I don't know, I just think it ties everything all in. I guess it's a little flashy, but yeah, I think it fits with the illustration itself. Even the colors of like pulling in the yellow from the flowers and, the butterfly, even the mushrooms. Which, by the way, if you look closely, the mushrooms, they have little faces. So cute. So the beauty of these types of illustrations for me, I feel like the more you look at it, the more you see and discover. So it's really just a joy to have this as the cover. I feel like every time I look at it, I might notice something new. So that's very cool. I'm definitely very happy with my Hobonichi Weeks for 2025. And if I might have mentioned it before, but I've already done like pen tests and everything is fine. The paper is fine. It's what it's expected, even though, there have been changes in the Tomoe River paper and Hobonishis and all that kind of stuff. But I guess I lucked out and everything is as expected. So the collaboration between the artist and the musician, um, it was artwork that already existed, and Hobonichi just chose this illustration to be on the week's cover. The music album, I believe, is called Himitsu Studio by a rock band named Spitz, and the artist Junaida basically like illustrated a piece for all 13 songs of the album, and then it was made into like a compilation art book, which is definitely on my to buy list because I do love this whole style of like illustration. Many of the other illustrations are actually on a Hobonichi cover, which I do have. I got the A6 version of the cover, so you can see it has all of the cool illustrations. And again, I just really like this style that's like almost cute, but not really, because if you look at the details, and of course the color palette is not like cutesy in that way, but the details, they definitely show you that it's sort of moody, you know? So I don't know if there's like an actual term for this type of style, but I sort of think of it as like just someone who likes, cutesy, kawaii, storybook kind of things, but then it's like elevated to be can be more moody, can be more even serious for like an adult audience. Yeah, so that's the cover. Um, I also found out that this illustration through the Purple Night it was actually the first illustration that was created for the song art book. So definitely something special. And this particular Hobonichi Weeks, when you buy it, it comes with a pencil board. And that doesn't usually happen with Hobonichi Weeks. So it's definitely like a special edition, I guess. And the pencil board is like a flexible plastic material that you can use to hold your place, which is usually what I use it for. But obviously can go under a page for support when writing. And this pencil board also features artwork from Junaida's like watercolor paintings, all from the same art book, so the style totally matches up. Now, at the time of the making of this video, it's the end of November, and I've been seeing everyone, setting up their Hobonichi weeks because the weeks you get the monthly calendar that starts in December, and the weeks it usually has sort of like the last week of November because it starts in December. So a lot of people set up and move in directly um, because obviously it's fun to move into a new planner and book. But I actually have a Hobonichi weeks like for each year, and I sort of like to keep like the year just in one book rather than moving ahead and having like December in one and just ending early in another one. I don't know, I just keep it in the year. So when it comes to preparing ahead of time, I guess I just sort of have to like cover up all those extra pages. I mean, I could leave them blank, of course, if I don't use them. But I think it's more fun, like just to cover it up, maybe add some embellishment or deco, since I'm not using those extra like month pages that are outside of the year of 2025. And this is probably because I'm not using the Hobonichi Weeks as a planner. Like some people obviously need to plan ahead, they would use those pages, and they can, completely just dive into a new planner whenever and start using it. For me, it's more like a personal life archive kind of thing, like highlights and things. So I'm filling it in after the fact. Um, it's like a nice way to see what happened in a week, and maybe even ephemera highlights from a personal aspect, which is very different from like my family memory keeping journal, which is like A5 and mostly like pictures of my kids, like scrapbook style. So this week's is for me, like personal notes, journaling, thoughts, hobbies, all of that kind of stuff that I wouldn't include in the family scrapbook. So I do have like my 2023 weeks here. It's super chunky because I add so much stuff in. Ephemera, sometimes little photos as well. And for 2024, I also have that here. And I am very behind because again, this is done, after the fact. So then I plug in like the highlights or whatever it is that I do want to journal about. And what I usually do is just slip in the things that I know I want to document, like if there's ephemera to keep, and I just keep like slipping it into the pages. So nothing is really done in real time, like or future time, you know what I mean? Except for I guess I could go in and write in all the birthdays and stuff like that, but I feel like it's easier just to do it, everything after the fact, week by week. Um, so yeah, that's how I use the Hobonichi weeks, and I suppose that's why my setup, I have way more time to set it up because I have until the new year, and there isn't really a lot of functional stuff to do. It's more just deco, and covering up like the extra pages and things like that. Um, so if you've seen like my 2023 weeks, I originally was going to use it for Italian language learning, and I did start it up. I was writing everything in Italian, but I fell off and soon realized that I was just not really motivated to have an entire journal, um, for language learning. I I mean, I guess like the book emphasis of language learning was not, it was just not motivating to me. So I sort of gave that up after a while, and that's how I sort of translated this 2023 weeks into like the life archive kind of idea. Um, really like the size of like the weeks where you have one spread for a whole week, so you can sort of pick and choose what you want to highlight, but it's not so intimidating like a daily journal, which is obviously a huge commitment to fill up like a whole page per day. So I feel like this is very doable, even though obviously I have my 2024 here that is behind. But yeah, it's meant to be done after the fact though, because like it's not real time journaling the way that like morning pages or like other types of personal journaling like Dear Diary might be. This is really like highlights and what do I want to put down in my like weekly like personal, log. Um so making this video, it's part for me to enjoy like my new Hobonichi weeks, the new design, look at the details, and share the whole experience with you as well. Um, and partially also to just give me some low key, like easy deco time where I can go in, use a bunch of pattern papers that I have to basically cover up the pages that I don't need and, add embellishments or whatever I want. Whether I do that before the year starts or like along the way. Sometimes I will just cover up the pages that I know I don't need, like the calendars and things. But if I don't have something specific that I actually want to add in, I'll just leave it with the decorative paper because it's just pretty. But over time or throughout the year, there might be something that I want to add in there. Um, I do keep a lot of ephemera just in general. I guess like people always joke about how it is like this journaling thing, right? Where someone's a journaler because they're like keeping all these little bits and pieces from their life. I definitely do that just by default. And sometimes it's important or it makes sense to keep that ephemera like in the week that it happened kind of thing or when you collected it, but sometimes it's like general, you know what I mean? Like you keep or you have a piece of ephemera that it doesn't actually need to be recorded like in the exact week that you collected it or whatever, because it doesn't connect to a specific journaling entry or story or something. Rather, it's just something you want to keep, right? So in that case, I really can put it anywhere in my Hobonichi weeks, and that's what I use the notes pages for as well, is like overflow and like extra stuff that doesn't necessarily have to be connected to like a dated week. Um, so if you open up just the classic Hobonichi week, this is the regular version, not the mega with extra pages. The title page says Hobonichi Weeks 2025. Then you get all the dated planner pages. And if you didn't already know, this planner does come in two languages. Hobonichi is a Japanese brand, so everything was in Japanese in the past, but now they have since become, internationally popular. So they also have English versions of many of the planners. So I bought the English version. And besides the language difference, where they're obviously labeling everything in English, there are also more like memo pages in this book compared to the Japanese version. 73 extra like grid memo pages in the back. Whereas the Japanese only has 69. And I think it's because the bonus pages in the back are a little bit different depending on the language. So every year in the back, there are these what they call bonus pages, I guess, because they do change year to year. Um, and it's sort of like random, interesting information that Hobonichi has chosen to focus on for the year, as well as some of the staples that they always include. So this year they have this article about measuring your body, measurements, like how to measure using your body. And there's the favorite spread where you can record and notate favorite films, books, music, restaurants, shops. And the last icon, it looks like hands clapping. So I think it's for like a show or live events. And there are 14 entries to fill in. So it's sort of like a little over one a month, which I think is sort of cool, it's sort of like reminding you to take note of these like highlights. So I think that's pretty cool. From a memory keeping standpoint, it's like a nice way to document things that you can look back on. And the next bonus spread is the My 100, which a lot of people talk about. It's in all of the Hobonichi like Techo planners. It's just a list of 100. So people use it for many different purposes, like a 100-day challenge or any kind of like topic or subtopic that you want to track or record. And some people do split it up though. They'll split it into like four columns and track like four different things, 25 each. So, another fun little exercise you can do here. And then you get the bonus content that does change every year because um, they just sort of pick a different topic to introduce to you. And this year it says symbols and icons. So, they're sort of like trying to encourage you to doodle like symbols and things that you can actually use throughout your planner pages. So, that is very cool. And then they have oodles of noodles where they go into an explanation of the types of noodles. And I think the Japanese version might be different because they include actual like specific information, maybe like places where there's like famous noodle restaurants, I think. But yeah, I don't have the Japanese version. So in this English version, it just includes general information about types of noodles, um, you know, in Japan and or in Japanese cuisine. And then there's the 365 days checkoff, which again is just another like sort of challenge type of page or habit tracking type of page, like year long. So you can definitely like think of one thing and track it here. And then you have addresses, which might seem obsolete with our phones and like cloud storage and all that kind of stuff. But I think sometimes it's really helpful to have things analog because like if your power goes up, your battery goes out, like we don't remember things by heart the way that we used to do, phone numbers and things like that. So it might be useful to have some information written down. And the back final page is just the personal info page, and Hobonichi branding copyright. And all of the Hobonichi planners, they have a specific serial number. I think that's what you would call it. So they have that seal with like the count and things like that. So I'm assuming they have some kind of like tracking system, right, of all the um, planners that they create. So those are the bonus pages. I realize I sort of went backwards here, but going back to the front now where it has the traditional planner pages, the Hobonichi Weeks is a horizontal weekly planner. So you can see the basic layout of the weeklies are like this, horizontal weekly boxes that are blank. Using this thin Tomoe River paper and it's Sanzen paper. You can sort of see the grid through though because the paper is so thin, so that might help you with writing straight, even though these boxes don't actually have lines or grids. But there are little dot marks that can help you split up the box if you need it, like in thirds or a third and two-thirds kind of thing. Then the grid page on the right is completely like blank grid page. for weekly notes. And many people, like in their setups, they're putting like habit trackers or like rolling, sort of like weekly lists, bullet journal kind of style. So I think that this setup is very versatile because it sort of gives you like the dated week overview, but then you have like just blank space to do whatever you want. And on this right hand side, there is a darker line right here that sort of gives you that margin space. Like some people use that um, because they'll put like a column for tracking something specific, and other people will just ignore it altogether, or you can just use it as a margin and start writing, there. Like all the Hobonichi planners, there are also quotes at the bottom of the planner pages. And I know that this is a love hate thing. Let me know down in the comments what you think, because some people love it because they're a little weird. Like sometimes very thoughtful and sometimes like just a little weird. Maybe because we don't, um, maybe we're not understanding the Japanese culture, possibly. It could be that. But yeah, it's just a little note that you can like read and ponder, and like some people just cover it up so it just becomes deco space, like wasted or just covered up by washi tape for deco. Um, when the planner was in Japanese, I think it was harder for me to always like want to look it up and translate it. But now that it's in English, I don't mind. I think it can be interesting just to think about something else, like for a moment, you know what I mean? Like read the quote and be like, how can that apply or what does it make me think of? So it's okay. Like I think once a week is very different than having like some random quote like every single day on the daily pages. So this bottom quote area, they have it sort of like a margin space because it does have this mini calendar on the bottom right here, with the week that you're on circled. So taking a closer look at the weekly layout, even though this is the English version, you'll notice that there still are some Japanese characters in the calendar. You'll see here where the dates are. It says like August 8th, and then the character, I think it means month. I think it's the same as Chinese, but I think obviously this is like Japanese kanji. So for the specific days of the week, it'll say like MON, like Monday in English, but it'll still have the Japanese kanji for the day of the week. And then it has the moon phase icon as well. So interesting that they still include like some Japanese elements, even though this is the English version. And maybe it's just to keep like the integrity, the fact that this is a Japanese planner. And the Hobonichi Weeks, by the way, is ivory, sort of like cream colored paper, which is different from the regular techos that have like white-ish paper. But all the paper now is supposed to be Tomoe River Sanzen, which is like there's huge controversy, in the stationery world because obviously any kind of change, there are going to be people who don't like the changes, and then some people do like the change. So it just depends like what pens you use, what inks you use, how it reacts, and obviously what your personal preferences are. I haven't had any issues, and maybe it's because I use extra fine or fine fountain pens, so um, everything is like as expected. So I don't really. It's not really affecting me personally, but I understand that people buying this planner, if it was working in one way and now it doesn't work anymore for you, then obviously that is very frustrating, if it doesn't perform as intended. So this creamy colored paper for the Hobonichi Weeks, I like it. I prefer sort of creamy-ish paper, but yeah, I know some people might not like it. But the Tomoe River Sanzen paper, it's 47 GSM specific to Hobonichi, and the grid spacing in the weeks is 3.6 millimeters. So if you're looking for exact measurements and specifications, not just for Hobonichi, but for lots of stationery products, I have found that like the JetPens website is like super thorough with their descriptions and specifications of products. They have so much information packed in their like blog posts as well about stationaries and things like that. Obviously, the things that they sell. But I feel like they sell almost everything. So even if you don't buy direct from them, I feel like their website is a really great guide, like for information in general. So to continue in my closer look, going back to the beginning of the Hobonichi Weeks, it has the typical planner pages that you would find in most planners. The year-long calendar overviews, the current year of the planner, which is 2025. Then you have the previous year, the next year, smaller sized for reference. So it's definitely helpful sometimes to have the yearly overview just for reference purposes. But some people do use it for like habit tracking and things, but since I'm using my Hobonichi weeks as a personal life archive, it sort of doesn't really apply. And this bottom area here, because this is the English version of the weeks, this area is blank and lined and it's labeled 2025 important dates so that you can put in your own important dates like holidays and things like that. In the Japanese version, it would actually list the Japanese holidays, like that rundown of dates. Next, we have the yearly overview spread that gives you the whole year at a glance, and people do use this for tracking like daily steps or something like that. It's a very small space to write in, so it makes sense for like very small tidbits of information, or if you have like a key or code or something with colors. So back to my usage as a personal life archive book, I'm not really sure how I would use this. So far, I don't think I've used it for anything. A lot of the pages I have that are obviously meant for planning and things, I would leave blank or just cover up. But let me know if you do have good ideas. I'm not really sure what I want to track and if I even want to track something because generally I'm horrible at tracking stuff. I'm just not good at keeping it up. Um, then we head into basically all the monthly page spreads. And again, you get December. That's why people jump into this planner early. But I'm only using things um, like for the particular year. So I basically get to cover up like this extra monthly spread here. And at the end, there's 3 additional months in 2026. So you get January, February, March, which of course is great for like future planning if you're using this as a planner. But I can just cover it up and maybe put deco or something like that, because I'm just going to keep like the actual year in each Hobonichi weeks rather than, shifting um, the dates. And I just like the idea of having like each book is that one year, like it's a volume. Um, so that would be how I use it. And after all the monthly pages that are grouped together in the front here, you just jump right into the weeklies. And um, they do have like the month, sort of tab printed on the page so you can see on the side of the planner here. And I know a lot of people do add their own tabs, like sticky tabs, for reference to flip around. I've learned that I sort of hate tabs. I don't like having like the extra little tidbit on the side. Um, and if it like hits your pen, if you put like a pen in the pen loop right next to it, it just gets messed up. I don't know. I just don't like it. And I guess it's because I don't feel the need to do a lot of referencing, like flipping back and forth from like month to week, back and forth. So again, I'm not using it as a planner. So maybe that's why. Um, so you just get all the weekly pages, all the weekly spreads, and it starts, of course, in December. And then the end, though, it just ends with the year end. Um, and they print out the entire week of dates, obviously, at the end of the year, even if like the next, January starts in that week. But yeah, you don't get any extra weeklies. It's straight into the memo pages after that. And the memo pages, they always have this informational page with abbreviations that you can sort of use. But most people, I think, cover this up with like a vision board, picture, something like that to start out their notes area. And the notes opening page, again, has like very little room for an index. I don't think it's enough space really for all of the notes pages that you have. But one idea I thought of was if I did want to index, which I don't know if I will because I don't know. But if you did want to index, you could keep adding like just little post-its, or like washi tape a little piece of paper on top. And so you keep adding more lines to your index as you go throughout the year, like one page stacked upon another. Um, and that way your index can really keep growing, right? Um, but that's just an idea. So when I'm in my weeklies, my right hand side is usually used to keep like ephemeras, photo, and random journaling. And if by chance I don't have enough room, then when I get to the bottom, I'm just going to write the page, like an arrow, a page number, to go to the notes section where I can keep the overflow. So for the whole year, that's basically how I handle it, kind of thing. I can use the notes pages as overflow for the weeklies, or I can just add something in that might not need to be connected to a date. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, so that's how I use the notes section, and it works out so far. And the amount of pages seems to work out as well, like for the whole year, at least so far, 2023, 2024, I think so. So yeah, that's why I don't buy the mega version, which has like over 200 memo pages. So it's like a lot more, like two and a half times more kind of thing. I think it's better suited for people who do like the daily logs, the bullet journaling kind of thing. So they need a lot more pages and space. Um, but yeah, I'm not sure how Hobonichi decides like what type of cover will be in a regular Hobonichi weeks versus a mega, because people used to always complain that the megas didn't have like pretty designs because they're not the same. Like when you go look at the 2025 Hobonichi lineup, you'll see that like certain designs are in certain sizes, like the megas, they only have specific designs, so everything is different. And you just have to check like every year to see what's available. Um, yeah. So this Hobonichi Weeks, I do put a clear cover and cover on it, especially because it's white and I want to, keep it as clean as possible, but also because I add these little like embellishment, so I don't want it to like be scratched off. So I like having the clear cover and cover on it. And generally, I think the Hobonichi Week size, it's so portable, it's so handy. It's like a long wallet, I guess. So it can be on the go if you want it to be. But I also think that it's just sort of nice to have like volumes of these in your bookshelf as well, um, which I think is really cool too. And now that I've started, it's almost like I feel like I can never stop. I must continue. So we'll see how that goes. And yeah, generally, I think it's just an enjoyable experience. Um, there is something different about memory keeping like a lot later. I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be a lot later, but like not in real time. You know what I mean? Like if you think about um, what you would want to record on like a weekly basis, or even like go bigger and just do it on a monthly basis. So it means to encapsulate a year, you really only have like 12 spreads, right? One for each month. So it's a very interesting project to take on because it obviously lets you think about all the cool things that happened before. And even if there's challenging things like now that it's a lot later, you can probably, like, you'll have different feelings about that time period in your life, even if something, negative happened or whatever, and you can reflect on it. So I definitely have been, exploring a lot of that because I realize that there's such a big difference between journaling in the moment or even like on the day or even in the week that you're in versus like a month or two later and reflecting back upon it. It's a very different way, I think, to journal, to memory keep, to document. So yeah, I think that it's very different, and I don't know if one is better than another. Really, I think they're like two different things, and I that's why I feel like I sort of like doing both in a sense. Even though people think, isn't that just like double memory keeping? Like, sort of, I guess, because they're in different themes or different lenses. But yeah, I think there is usefulness in both types of journaling or both types of logging or memory keeping. So I like having the Hobonichi weeks because it's dated and it does keep me sort of accountable because I know you could just grab a blank notebook and do logging, memory keeping, whatever. But there's something about having like just that template that really helps to keep it going. Definitely for me. And again, this is like on a weekly basis versus a daily basis because there's such a huge difference between 365 days if you want to go daily, 52 weeks, which is a lot less, right? If you just want to go weekly. And if that's too much for you, just do it monthly. Like that's only 12 spreads. So like once a month, you're like, okay, what's all the things I want to say about this month? And that's it. And of course, it might be high level or it might be like a deep dive on one thing because that was the one thing that you wanted to talk about. Again, another I just think it's an interesting way to journal, to reflect back on your life, um, to memory keep. Um, Before, I did used to do dated journaling for my family scrapbook, and it was like huge, because 365 days of like pictures. But I have since moved to the blank notebook because I feel like I've done it for so many years that I don't need maybe the structure to keep me going. Does that make sense? Because it's become so automatic for me. It's really easy for me to keep up with my family scrapbooking. I mean, so many years already. So um, I guess that's the difference. When something is a habit already, then like you don't need those little helpers. Whereas if you're trying to take on something new, then you do need, like a foundation or a template or a system or something to keep you going. Um, yeah, so that's my Hobonichi weeks for 2025. And of course, I'm going to go in and cover up some places. I'm using all of these printable papers that are uh, for my blog or for my Ko-fi subscription that you can join to download all the printables. But I basically print out the designs onto just regular printer paper. I'm printing at home here, so nothing fancy. And that way I can just use it as like pretty decorative paper to cover up pages that I don't need. And then I can decorate or include my own ephemera or a sticker or something like that. Just to decorate my own planners and journals. So I hope you enjoyed taking a peek at this sort of closer look at Hobonichi Weeks and hearing my thoughts on all of it and seeing little tidbits of my Hobonichi Weeks like life archive books. And I'm just going to, do a little bit of setup, although it's not like a whole lot, because like I said, I more so work on my Hobonichi Weeks after the fact. So I really don't need this to be quote unquote ready until we're like well into January kind of thing. So there really isn't a rush, but I do like to go in and cover up some of the pages and just use some of my papers. I think it's definitely an activity that is really fun to do and relaxing, low key, like you don't have to think about it that much. And then in the end, you have like your pretty little book, like semi set up and ready to go. And whenever you come upon something, if you have a piece of ephemera or a cool sticker, something interesting that you want to add in, you can already add it in. So it's something that I definitely really enjoy using. I'll be, listening to a YouTube video or something like that and just working on my book. And yeah, it's just fun times. And so I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Let me know if you use the Hobonichi weeks, if you have already moved in, maybe, and what do you think of this like life archive idea or the fact that you can journal in these different like timelines, right? Like daily journaling, weekly journaling, monthly highlight journaling, that kind of thing. I think it's a very interesting concept. Let me know down in the comments your thoughts and like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want more stationery videos. Thank you again for your support and until next time. Bye.